Hello, BookTube. There's a small handful of people in this world who don't just tune in on BookTube when they feel like it to listen to Grandpa Simpson tedious life updates from Steve, but rather have to listen to them all the time. They're not happy about that fact, and you wouldn't be either. But at least I acknowledge it, and the update I have today for the tedious story is the saga of my iPhone. Those of you who are new to the channel and are wondering what the hell you're doing here, a muscular teenager put my iPhone in the laundry. I snatched it out as fast as I could, but it was dead. I brought it to a repair shop, and they repaired it. Amazingly, they saved every bit of data on it and swapped out the battery. But they couldn't fix the Wi-Fi chip on the motherboard. The iPhone 5, it's glued on so tight that in order to remove it and to replace it, they would have to crack the motherboard, and they didn't want to do that. So they handed it back to me, and I had the ongoing question of, do I really need my phone to be Wi-Fi ready if it does everything else? Do I really need it? Do I really need to be able to check email on the go? One, I'm not on the go all that much. Two, I'm never without my MacBook Air, which I know my phone doesn't have a carrier plan. I go day to day, a day-to-day plan. So it only works on Wi-Fi when I'm outside the house anyway, and so does the MacBook. So I quickly came to the realization that since the phone could call and text, I didn't really need it, especially since I have the backup capacity on this computer of filming videos here and not on my phone. And then, after a while of thinking about it, noodling around on YouTube rather, I realized that maybe I could film videos on the phone, which has a better camera, and then transfer them to the MacBook. And I noodled around and I noodled around. I got a lot of good advice from the rest of you and figured out, of course, that is possible. That if you film something on the phone, it will be in your photo library the minute you connect the phone to the computer. So I made a video this morning doing that, and it worked just fine. So I thought, okay, great. So every function on this phone that I would use it for works just fine, except for catching email on the go. That's not reason enough to get rid of a phone that I like. But in the course of the day, the phone has been repeating a problem that it's had ever since I picked it up from the shop. It doesn't seem to be consistently taking a charge. It's right now not charging at all. If I plug it into the MacBook Air, the old MacBook, the MacBook Pro, the wall, it's simply not taking a charge. Now, I have two options of a possible reason for that. One is that it's the cord. But the cord worked just fine for years before the phone was dunked in the laundry. So option number two is that it's the phone. And I don't know, I'm faced with the tedium of going to the Apple store and getting a new cord and having the genius there tell me, dude, this will totally work. And then having it not, because it actually turned out to be the phone, and then I'm stuck with it. Or I can go back to the shop where the owner offered me a very nice deal on an iPhone 6 and just buy that with a new machine, a new lens, a new camera, a new motherboard, a new cord, everything, and just consign this iPhone 5 to the junk drawer. And I would once have abhorred that idea, but if it doesn't take a charge, then it will soon be dead. In 10 hours, it will be dead. And then it's no use to me whatsoever. so, of course. And also, it's not really any use to me if I'm constantly wondering if today's going to be the day when it does take a charge. I don't want to do that. I don't want to think that way. So that's the tedious update. But I didn't want to give you just a tedious update. Because, sooner or later, enough tedious updates, you might not come back. And I do so like seeing your faces every day. So I thought I would show you a book haul. That's the only other arrow I've got in my quiver. I've got tedious Grandpa Simpson rants, and I've got books, and that's about it. And the other day, it's not a new book haul. There'll be plenty of those. But the other day I was out and about, with my boys, and I was, as usual, accumulating books as I went along. And one of the things that I thought of before I left the house, just as a random whim, because I've been so enjoying the annotated Frankenstein that we saw on this channel. I've been so loving it. And I realized at one point, late in the night, in between picking up after Lucy, that I didn't have a ratty little disposable mass market copy of Frankenstein. Not even the old Magnum Easy Eye edition with Boris Karloff on the cover. I didn't have anything like that. Didn't have a copy of Frankenstein other than the Wolf definitive Frankenstein, the annotated version, and this new annotated Frankenstein. No beater copy to walk around with in my bag. So on the beginning of the day, I thought, I'm bound to see a lot of books today. I wonder if I can find a copy of Frankenstein. Ordinarily, I don't try to push the karma of what I'm seeing at all. I almost never say I'm looking for such and such a thing, because I'm always happy with the random chance. But in the back of my mind, I said, okay, by the end of the day, will all the books that you're going to see, will you see a Frankenstein? And I did. Can you believe it? I did. This is the Oxford World Classics edition of Frankenstein. This is the 1818 text, which is, you might wonder why they would specify, but it's a dirty thing that Mary Shelley did to the publishing world. She published the 1818 text, hot off the presses, hot off the steaming bed coal of her imagination. And then years later, she published another text of Frankenstein that she went through and worked over and corrected. And so forever afterwards, there are two texts. Now, because all authors are egomaniacs, when she did that, she just assumed there'd be one text, and it'd be the second one. No one would ever read or care about the 1818 text if there was a new one that the author says is what she really meant. But that's not how things work, and she should have known that. So now the literary world forever has two texts of Frankenstein. And editors always, when they're making a reprint volume like this, they have to decide which one are we going to pick. This editor picks the 1818 text. I don't agree with that. I know that it's probably unfashionable to say, but I think the later text is better. I mean, if we trust Mary Shelley's aesthetic abilities enough to want to read the book in the first place, I should think we would trust them enough to want to read more her update of the book than her original version. But it was 25 cents, and I grabbed it anyway because just for the fun of succeeding. So I now have a beater copy of Frankenstein. So that was book number one. Then another one, something we've seen on this channel before that I have a sweet tooth for. I really, really like them. Once Upon a Time, about, I don't know, I don't have the date on this, about 30 years ago, Modern Library, they're a classic reprint house here in America, and about 30 years ago, their design, they're constantly changing their design, and their design about 30 years ago was to give every hardcover the same dirty manila dust jacket with no artwork and nothing, no summary, no blurbs, no nothing like that, just the title, and they all looked the same. I remember going to bookstores and seeing a whole wall of them, and I love them. I don't know why. And I found one that I don't have that I really want, which is the complete novels of Nathaniel Hawthorne. This has selected tales, too, that are really his best tales, the ones that you'll want to read unless you're a completist. And it's a nice, big Modern Library thing. And these things have a spot over on my desk, which is really not fair because I don't use the desk anymore. So that's not exactly a spot of honor anymore. But I was very happy to find this. And then work of natural history, a natural history writer that I think I've praised on this channel before, Sally Carrighar. This is Wild Heritage, but all of her books are great. There is our author in her prime. All of her books are fantastic. They're all full of illustrations, and they're her smart, very poetic prose describing the natural world. I really can't recommend her high enough. And I was flipping through this, and I saw this was a Book of the Month Club edition, and it has a reader report. Book of the Month Club used to do this. Their readers used to write out reports of the books that they chose. And sometimes, if the report was particularly good, particularly smart, or well written, they would issue it with the book. And this was by Gil Hyatt, whose name we have heard on this channel before. He's a great writer in his own right. And he did this. So this was a well-loved edition, I think. And I'm very happy to have it because almost all of my Sally Carrighar is in paperback. and I reread her often enough so that a hardcover is what I should have. And then the next one I know I've mentioned on this channel before, but I love it. I don't love this author, but I love this book, and I'm not quite sure what it is. It's Letters to Alice on First Reading Jane Austen by Fay Weldon, whose publisher nowadays, especially with the appearance of her crappy latest novel, they're trying to position her as kind of a literary lion on the British literary landscape. I don't know that you can be a literary lion with no claws and no teeth, but I love this book. It's an epistolary novel without the novel part. It's just a string of letters that really do feel like a collection of letters from an old reader to a young reader. And the Jane Austen's in the title, but really they branch out to be just about reading in general. I highly recommend it. Readers especially. It's that elusive category of books about books and reading. I would put that on a small shelf of really good ones. And then the last two we'll do for now, continue my lucky streak of great biographies. The first one is this thing, Henry VIII by J.J. Scarswick. This is, I don't even know when this came out. When did this come out? 40 years ago at least. Yeah, 1968. But it is still, I think, pound for pound, the best scholarly biography of Henry VIII that's ever been written. It lacks a little bit of, as the French would say, je ne sais something. Grandeur might be the word I'm looking for. It is absolutely brilliant and pithy also, often. This is a very good author. The one reason that I don't say the greatest Henry VIII biography of all time is because, for instance, Francis Hackett's book from half a century before this one did have grandeur. But it was so partisan that it threw buckets of scholarship over the side rather than incorporate them. So you can't really lean a lot of scholarly weight on it. You kind of quite a bit, but not completely, but you'll never tire of reading it. This is sort of the counterpoint to that, which leads me to think that somewhere down the line on this channel, I will be encountering a 1,000-page biography of Henry VIII that is everything. That really is the greatest book on the subject. But in the meantime, this will certainly do. And I have a ratty trade paperback that's coming apart at the spine, so I was very happy to find this, especially for free. And then from that we go to, again, the other day I said British royalty and U.S. presidents. Sorry to be so mind-bogglingly consistent, but this is a great book. This is Grant by Jean Edward Smith. Who recently did a great book on George W. Bush. Amazingly. Wouldn't have thought that was possible, but it really was. And this just blew the dust off all of my conceptions of Grant. As a military commander, as a civilian failure in his pre-military life, and especially as president. This author makes a very good case that the popular idea of Grant as a colossal failure as a president was at least partially the result of propaganda, Southern propaganda, that was just artfully placed and then picked up and copied. Just an incredibly refreshing book on Grant. And, Grant's one of those rare U.S. presidents where the non-presidential life is every bit as biography worthy. It's not most U.S. presidents only become worthy of a great big biography once they become president. But Grant's not one of those. We would have 1,000-page biographies of him as a military commander, even if he'd never gone into politics. So it's rare to find a biography of him that covers everything well, and this does. So I highly recommend it. If you see this at your Savers or your Goodwill or your Salvation Army, grab it, because it's a great biography to have. And there you have it. Those were my thrift shop buys just recently. There were a bunch of others. There were about 6 others, but they're all for you, so I can't show them on camera. But that's all I wanted to share with for today was a few great old books and an update on this iPhone saga. That's just that one boneheaded move of putting this cell phone in the laundry has caused me so much time and headache. It's driving me nuts. But I think just for my own convenience, as horribly capitalist American as this sounds, I think just to make this problem go away, I'm just going to buy a new phone, a new old phone, an iPhone 6. And I will update you. Don't you worry. Thank you, BookTube.